There is a very specific kind of fear that travels through a host nation's football media when their team's flawless tournament suddenly meets an opponent nobody wanted to draw. Mexico arrived at the round of 32 of the 2026 World Cup, having done something genuinely historic. 3 wins from 3 group games, 6 goals scored, 0 conceded. The best group stage performance in the history of Mexican football at this tournament, played in front of their own supporters, at altitude, with the kind of home advantage that very few nations on earth get to enjoy at this level of the competition. And then the bracket revealed their opponent, not Scotland, who the prediction models had as the most likely draw at 32%, not Uruguay or Cape Verde or Sweden, Ecuador. The South American side who had just produced one of the genuine shock results of the entire group stage, coming from behind to beat group winners Germany 2-1 in their final fixture, a result so significant it ended one of the tournament's 4-time champions' campaigns before the knockout rounds even began. Within hours of that draw being confirmed, the tone across Mexican football media shifted in a way that was impossible to miss. The host nation's press, having spent 3 weeks celebrating their perfect group stage, suddenly found itself talking with considerably more caution about what lay ahead. So what's really happening here, and why has a team that just beat Germany sent a ripple of genuine concern through Mexican football coverage? Let's start with what Mexico actually achieved in the group stage, because the scale of it explains exactly why the mood shifted so sharply when Ecuador's name appeared on the bracket. Javier Aguirre's side opened the tournament with a 2-0 win over South Africa at the Estadio Banorte, formerly the Azteca, on the opening night of the World Cup. They followed it with a 1-0 win over South Korea in Guadalajara. They closed out Group A with a 3-0 demolition of Czechia back in Mexico City. 3 matches, 3 wins, 6 goals scored, not a single goal conceded. It was by every measure the greatest group stage performance in the history of Mexican football at this tournament, surpassing even their celebrated runs at the World Cups they hosted in 1970 and 1986. This is Aguirre's 3rd spell in charge of the Mexican national team, and the personal weight of this tournament for him specifically deserves to be understood. He played for Mexico at the 1986 World Cup as a midfielder. He managed the team at the 2002 edition. Both of those campaigns produced 2 wins and a draw in the group stage, until this squad, under his current stewardship, finally surpassed that mark with a perfect record. Mexico are unbeaten in 9 World Cup matches at their home stadium, with only 2 defeats at the venue across their entire history, the most recent coming in a 2013 qualifier against Honduras, not even at a World Cup itself. The atmosphere generated by more than 80,000 fans inside that stadium has been cited repeatedly by analysts and opposition managers alike as one of the genuine, measurable factors behind Mexico's results so far. Add to that the altitude. The Estadio Banorte sits more than 7,000 feet above sea level, a documented physiological challenge for any visiting side unaccustomed to playing at that elevation, and you have the foundation for exactly the kind of confidence that had been building across Mexican football coverage for 3 straight weeks. Then Ecuador arrived in the conversation, and the tone changed.
Here's where things get interesting, because Ecuador's route to this fixture tells its own remarkable story. Sebastian Becassese's side endured a genuinely difficult group stage. They were held to a goalless draw by Curaçao despite producing 26 shots, 15 of them on target, a statistic that speaks to a team that was creating plenty but converting almost nothing. They struggled to score across their opening 2 matches, drawing criticism in their own media for a conservative approach that left them on the brink of group stage elimination. And then, in their final fixture against a German side that had topped Group E, everything changed. Leroy Sané gave Germany an early lead. Nilson Angulo equalized. Gonzalo Plata struck the winner in the 77th minute. Ecuador 2, Germany 1. A result that not only secured Ecuador's place among the 8 best third-place teams advancing to the knockout rounds, but eliminated one of the tournament's genuine heavyweight contenders in the process. That win matters enormously to understanding why Mexican media reacted the way they did. This is only the 2nd time in Ecuador's history that they have advanced beyond a World Cup group stage. The first coming at the 2006 tournament in Germany, when a side captained by Ivan Hurtado progressed alongside the hosts before falling 1-0 to England's David Beckham free kick in the round of 16. 20 years later, Ecuador are back in the knockout rounds, and they arrive having just beaten a 4-time world champion. That is not the profile of a third-placed qualifier that anyone wants to face. That is a team playing with genuine belief, built on a defensive record that ranks among the very best at this entire tournament. Ecuador conceded only 5 goals across 18 World Cup qualifiers and have allowed just 2 goals across their 3 group stage matches in this tournament itself. Mexican coverage of the draw reflected exactly that reality. Where pre-tournament and group stage commentary had been built around celebration of Mexico's perfect record, the analysis shifting toward Ecuador carried a noticeably different register. Language built around respect rather than confidence, around caution rather than certainty. Mexican outlets began breaking down Ecuador's defensive solidity in detail. They examined Plata's directness and his 5 committed fouls across 3 group games, noting his disciplinary record as both a weapon and a risk. They discussed Ecuador's ability to grind out results against superior opposition, exactly the profile that doesn't fit comfortably against a host nation that has, to this point, faced nothing resembling Ecuador's quality. The historical head-to-head record does offer Mexico genuine reassurance, even if the tone of the coverage suggested otherwise in the moment. The two nations have met 28 times across their history, with Mexico winning 17 of those encounters to Ecuador's 4, and 7 matches finishing level. Their only previous World Cup meeting came at the 2006 tournament, when Mexico won 2-1. Their most recent encounter, a friendly in October 2025, ended in a 1-1 draw. Across their last 5 meetings specifically, Mexico have won 2, Ecuador 1, with 2 further draws, a pattern that suggests genuine competitiveness rather than the lopsided history the overall head-to-head record might imply at first glance. But here's where things get interesting in a way that goes beyond pure football analysis. Because the panic in Mexican football media this week hasn't been entirely about the opposition on the pitch. It has also been about what's been happening off it, in the build-up to the match itself, around the question of who would actually be inside the stadium supporting which team. An uproar erupted across Ecuadorian football media and supporter circles when it emerged that fans of La Tri, Ecuadorians, were struggling to purchase tickets to support their team against Mexico at the venue. The initial and immediate reaction from Ecuadorian journalists and fans was to place the blame squarely on the Mexican Football Federation, accusing them of deliberately limiting the availability of tickets to Ecuadorian supporters in an apparent attempt to ensure the stadium atmosphere remained overwhelmingly pro-Mexico. One Ecuadorian journalist, whose post on social media gained more than 1.1 million views, stated directly in Spanish that the Mexican Federation wasn't responding, wasn't taking orders, and wasn't selling them tickets. The claim was specific, that Ecuador was contractually entitled to receive 8% of available tickets from the Mexican Federation for this fixture, and that the Federation had refused to release them.
That story spread rapidly through football media on both sides of the fixture, and for a period, it looked set to become a genuine diplomatic flashpoint between the two football communities ahead of one of the most significant matches in Mexico's tournament. It was, ultimately, found to be the result of a miscommunication and procedural confusion on Ecuador's own side, rather than any deliberate action by the Mexican Federation, but not before it had generated exactly the kind of cross-border football media tension that adds an extra emotional layer to an already significant knockout fixture. Think about what this means for the players who actually have to walk out onto that pitch. Raúl Jiménez, whose emotional first World Cup goal at the Estadio Banorte on opening night against South Africa was one of the defining individual moments of this tournament's opening week, is expected to be restored to Mexico's starting lineup after being rested for the Czechia match. Mexico's attacking options run deep.
Alexis Vega, Julian Quiñones, Santiago Jimenez at AC Milan, Gilberto Mora, the 17-year-old who became the youngest player from North America ever to feature at a World Cup. The squad assembled by Aguirre carries genuine technical quality across every position, but none of that changes the fundamental reality that Mexico have not won a World Cup knockout match in 40 years. Their quarterfinal runs in 1970 and 1986, both achieved as hosts, both at this exact stadium, remain the standard against which every Mexican World Cup campaign since has been measured and found wanting. For Ecuador, the human story is built around different names. Nilson Angulo, the 23-year-old Sunderland forward who has scored in 3 of his last 6 appearances for his national team, has emerged as exactly the kind of player Ecuador will look to as their potential hero if this match requires individual brilliance to break Mexico's home advantage. Gonzalo Plata, who scored the winner against Germany, carries both genuine attacking threat and disciplinary risk into this fixture, having already been booked once at this tournament. Enter Valencia, the veteran captain, whose struggles in front of goal have been a recurring theme of Ecuador's campaign, remains the symbolic heart of a squad built far more around defensive solidity than attacking firepower. The bigger issue underneath all of this, the perfect group stage, the historic opponent, the ticket controversy, the shifting media tone, is what it reveals about the psychological weight Mexico now carries as co-hosts of this tournament. Every match from this point forward is no longer simply about football. It is about whether a nation that has waited 40 decades for a knockout win can finally deliver one, on home soil, at altitude, in front of supporters who have given them every possible advantage across 3 group matches. That weight is precisely why the tone shifted the moment Ecuador's name appeared on the bracket. Confidence built over 3 matches against opposition Mexico were expected to beat meets genuine uncertainty against an opponent who has already proven they can beat a 4-time World Cup winner. What happens next is genuinely open. Mexico are favorites. The bookmakers, the prediction models, and the overwhelming weight of history at this specific stadium all point in their direction. But Ecuador arrive with a defensive record that ranks among the best at this tournament, a goal scorer in Angulo who has shown he can produce moments of quality, and the kind of belief that only comes from having just eliminated one of football's genuine superpowers. What do you think? Does Mexico's altitude and crowd advantage outweigh Ecuador's proven ability to grind out results against elite opposition? And after 40 years of knockout round heartbreak, is this finally the Mexican team capable of breaking the pattern on home soil? If you found this worth your time, a like helps more than you'd think. Subscribe if you enjoy thoughtful football coverage, and let me know your view in the comments. I read every one.